Hey, what is up guys? Brandon here, aka Mr. Brand Owner, and welcome back to a new YouTube video. And today we got a special one. I have a pleasure here sitting with Hilal, who's going to be breaking down everything about AI, e-commerce, and it's just going to be a killer one. So guys, Hilal, I'm going to be handing it over to you. Quick introduction about yourself. What do you do? And then we'll just get straight into it.
Okay, great. Hi, everyone. My name is Hilal, and my background is a mix of e-commerce, tech, and most recently AI. So I run an AI consulting firm, and we consult primarily with 7 and 8 figure e-commerce brands, helping them understand how to use AI to build automations within their setup and understanding how to use their context to properly fuel their AI systems.
Yeah. We met each other basically through a friend of mine that him and I were talking, and we were talking about AI and how he's basically scaling like multiple brands at the same time using AI. And he told me like, yo, there's this guy, Hilal, you need to talk to him, see like how you guys can help each other out, because he's obviously very good in AI. I was too overwhelmed with a lot of AI stuff, which we can get into in a bit.
Yeah.
But that is eventually how we ended up meeting and then having lunch here in Dubai, and that's how we now know each other and also work together. But yeah, so basically what I went ahead and did is like, obviously I have MR Mastery, my own community where people are obviously like scaling brands with subscriptions, MR and stuff. So I actually went ahead and just asked them like, hey guys, I have a call with my AI guy. What are the questions that you guys would really like to see, next to some couple of questions myself, in order to actually get answered in this interview? So I went ahead and lined them up. So we'll just go over them. Very interesting ones as well. Basically, like first things first, I have here the first question from one of my guys asking like, what are the top 3 AI tools every ecom brand should be running right now? And what does each one replace? So basically, if we have to break this down, it's more of we got Claude, we got ChatGPT, we got Manus, we got Gemini, we got all these other AI tools. There's so many of them.
Yeah.
How would you go ahead about basically using like a top 3 and why?
So I would think of it. So when it comes to the tools, I would think of it as more what you want to try and build is a system of tools, right? So there are different tools you can use, but the people who really excel are the people who build up a system of tools. So for example, let's take Claude as an example. Claude is a great tool for certain things. You have other tools that are good at other things. But if I was an ecom brand, I wanted to set up a system, let's say, of different tools, I would look at what's going to give me the most leverage. So for example, Claude, you can think of it as, okay, Claude's going to come and replace my copywriting team. Claude is very good at copywriting, right? It's going to replace my copywriting team. Maybe some of what a creative strategist does, so helping me build angles, helping me, understand my avatars better, that kind of thing. Then you want other tools that are going to replace, let's say, your static and video generation stack. So, normally you'd have, let's say, a couple of graphics designers, maybe a couple of video editors. You want to be able to replace that with AI. So you're going to use, Nano Banana, you're going to use GPT, you're going to use VO. That's kind of another stack as part of your system where you're deploying those tools. And then probably I'd also have another layer, which is your funnel builder. So typically you'd have a CRO agency or maybe a developer, and you'd go to him and you say, I want to build an advertorial or listicle or something that sits between the ad and the PDP. So again, you want a tool there to be able to help you build that page. Maybe it's Lovable, maybe it's V0. I mean, there are plenty of these tools. But really what you want is a system that's connecting all of these tools together. And that's going to really help you to excel.
Yeah. Because basically like you've also went ahead and also built a couple of brands yourself, right?
Yes.
So you wouldn't say that there's only a top 3 that you would use. It's just really based on whatever updates come out. And if a few of these tools get nerfed, you end up switching.
What I would say is in terms of that, don't try and chase models, right? So a lot of people, what happens is they get into this loop of, oh, this model just came out, I need to use this model. This model just came out, I need to. you'll get lost. It's too overwhelming. You're never going to have the capability unless all you do full time is AI. Even then, it's really tough. You're never going to have the capability to keep up to date on what all the models are doing all the time. They literally release new versions every other week, and they're always competing with each other, and they're always improving and optimizing their systems and their models. What I would say is pick a model that you are comfortable with. So, for example, me and my clients, normally I recommend they use Claude. Why? Because I like Claude. So I like their models. I like the way their model interacts. I like the way their projects are set up. But that doesn't mean that you cannot take the same architecture that we use with our Claude setup and implement that with ChatGPT or Gemini or Manus. They're all very, very good. Some do certain things a little better than others, but honestly, you're better off sticking to one and building the framework and architecture around that one system versus trying to chase one, and then another one comes out and, oh, I'm gonna hop on that one, and another one changes and updates, and, oh, I'm gonna hop on that one. You're never gonna like optimize fully for one.
Yeah, yeah, true. Yeah, I think that's also one of the things I ended up messaging you about is like, I'm always scrolling on Twitter,
Yeah,
seeing whatever new updates come out, and then I see Claude launch this new update. Now
yeah,
we got Claude
exactly.
Design, we got Claude Code,
Yeah,
Co-work,
yeah,
and then ChatGPT ended up launching whatsoever 5.5, and then
yes,
eventually Google does something like this. There was too many, and I texted you. I was like, Hilo, what should I go ahead and do? Because like it's too overwhelming, especially as me myself as an DTC founder and operator. Like there's all these tools, and then you get FOMO. At least I get FOMO,
yeah. I
and
get
I'm like,
FOMO
okay, I
too.
want to try all these different. Yeah, I want to try all these different things, and then you
Yeah,
went in and said like, okay, we need a master one, and you recommended me Claude as well, and that is where you eventually came in and built out this whole ecosystem in Claude for basically being able to build out listicles, build out, copywriting skills. I think skills is something we can definitely talk about
for sure.
maximizing Claude, because I think a lot of people just put a lot of input, just ask questions, and
Yes,
they do not get the max return on Claude. Yeah, and that is where the clarity came. Like after you said like, okay, hey, we're gonna build out this ecosystem on Claude. Like since then, any type of new update I see on Twitter, like some of them I might send over to you, like, is this worth it? And you would say like, nah, probably hype, or yeah, okay, something I'm gonna look into. I'll get back to you once I've like dissected it and stuff. Yeah, a little bit crazy when it comes down to that. Like the market is moving very, very quick. Like I think it's not even more than 1.5 years ago, like ChatGPT didn't even exist, right? Or was it 2 years ago, something like that.
few years, but
Like,
yeah, I mean, look, it's moving so fast, and these models are going so. There's stuff you can do now that a year ago would have been unthinkable, unimaginable. Like you,
true.
you never would have thought, oh, that's possible. Whereas
Yeah.
now you can do it no problem, and it's moving so fast. I don't even know where it's going to be in a year, or
Yeah.
2 years. So yeah, it's very exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. True. True. And also, like another question that I basically had, like, if you were to go ahead and build a brand from zero today, what would be the first thing you'd hand over to AI, like from the get go?
That's a good question. So it depends on your business and your setup. So if you're a new business, completely new, and you want to use AI to help you launch the business, that's one thing. You're going to go at it slightly differently. If you're a more advanced, so let's say when you guys came to us, or someone maybe not quite as big as you, but someone who's been going for a couple of months, they have their own data, they have their own context. What I would do to start with, what you want to give AI is the data that's going to give you the most leverage as a business. Now, that's going to vary from business to business. For an e-commerce business, the number one thing you want to give AI is insights into your customers, because everything builds off of that. So if you don't have any data yet, if you're brand new, we normally deploy some deep research to try and pull that data from the internet. You You can scrape Reddit, you can scrape Amazon, YouTube. You can get a lot of data, but honestly, the best data is your own data. So if you're coming to the table and you have customer reviews, you have questionnaires, you have any sort of Facebook comments or feedback from real people, that is what I would give to AI first, because everything builds off of that. And AI is very, very good at reading and understanding huge amounts of customer data. So, if you have 1,000 or 5,000 reviews, that is literally gold. That is uh, from your standpoint as an e-commerce business, that is probably one of your biggest assets is the data that you can get from your customers in terms of reviews. If you do questionnaires, I would probably not do them until you're a certain size, but at a certain size, doing questionnaires with customers, getting that sort of data, again, invaluable. And then you just feed that into your AI. That's what I would say is the number one starting point, and then you can build layers on top of that.
Yeah, yeah, completely agree. Yeah, I always tell people, at least like, always make sure to do manual research so that you understand exactly what you're getting yourself into, who's your customer, your avatars, the angles that you want to eventually be targeting as well. Because if you were to start something from scratch, you end up like asking Claude or whatsoever for, okay, hey, I want to do this. Tell me more about this. It's going to give you some info, but like also with not the right prompting at all, you're not going to get the very well output as well. So you're not going to get the right information or at least the full picture of it. And that's why I tell people, like in our case, we do like Amazon scraping, Reddit scraping, YouTube comments also, and also Google as well. And we have that all put into like one power, Google Doc or whatsoever. And then we end up implementing that into Claude, for example, so that it exactly understands like what we've done so far. So it narrows down to finding exactly what ever we need or what we're missing in terms of our research, or what I call deep research when we end up like launching a new product or whatsoever.
Exactly.
It actually goes hand in hand with you and I, right? We're both on Claude. We have the exact same thing. One person is going to get a little bit less, or let's just, I'm going to make it bad. Let's just say one person gets garbage responses and one person pulls out like winners, right? Can be with, angles, research, whatsoever. What makes the difference between two operators that use the same tool and prompt, but one gets garbage and one gets winners? Like,
yeah.
What is the big difference there?
One word: context. And that's why that's what I do, is context. So my consultancy is called Context Architect, because what I do is I take your data and I turn it into structured context that AI can understand and use properly. And that's what makes the difference between um, essentially garbage. It's garbage in and garbage out, right? So a lot of people, they make the mistake with AI in thinking that it can answer any question without having the right context. And if you think about what these models are, they're large language models. What that means is they analyze language, right? That's what makes them smart, is that they pull from huge amounts of training data to analyze what's in there, and then they give you answers based on that. So if you think of it in those terms, if you're asking it a question, like for example, if you go and you say, I want you to give me 5 angles for this product, you just give it the product and you say, give me 5 angles. It'll do it, but what it's doing is it's pulling from its training data, right? Which is very broad and very generic. Now, if you have that, is going to give you a certain output that's probably not going to be great. Whereas if you go and you give it the context of all your avatar data, all your reviews, if you have reviews, all your data about why the brand works, what's your customer, your product market fit, all of that stuff, if all of that is in there, it's going to be able to give you a much better answer because it has all of the context it needs. So really, it comes down to the input. The input is what makes the output so much better. And a lot of times, people will think about if you're thinking about what type of, let's say you're training someone, right? So some people think about AI as, oh, I'm hiring this really amazing strategist and they're going to do the job for me. That's not really how it works. You should think of it as, I'm hiring someone who's just starting out as a strategist, and they know they're well studied, so they know how to execute, but they don't understand my brand yet. So you need to teach them everything about your brand so they can become, an A+ creative strategist for your brand. See what I mean?
Mm. Yeah, interesting. I was at an mastermind event as well, and they had like an workshop where this guy ended up talking about Claude for an hour, right? And the metaphor that he used next to for someone that's already like already advanced, already prompting well off all that type of stuff, but basically from all the entrepreneurs that were in that workshop, their issue was Claude. They felt that Claude wasn't really giving them the answers that they were looking for, and basically his only answer was the following. He said, "You should treat Claude as it's all about the input that you actually give, like you said." But he said, like, for example, if you're with your girlfriend in the kitchen and you end up asking, like, "Hey, give me that thing over there," right?
Yes.
Your girl's not gonna know what's that thing
Exactly.
over there, right?
Exactly.
So you if you want something specific, you'd be like, okay, like you call your girl and say, "Hey, can you please pass me that blue knife that's next to the microwave on top of the shelf," right?
Yes.
And then it's gonna end up giving you that answer or giving you that blue knife that you want.
Yes.
So that eventually also reframed the way that I also prompt with Claude as well.
Yes.
Because I was also like one of the beginners, like, okay, hey, please look up this top 5 and let me know, right? But now it's like, okay, you know what? I know I need to now structure the way I ask things in order to get the
Exactly.
answers that I'm basically looking
And
for.
honestly, the prompt doesn't matter as much as it used to. It used to be when AI first started, the prompt was quite important. But these models are so good now that honestly, the prompt really, if the context is good enough, the prompt doesn't matter. So you could have an amazing prompt, but if the input context is crap going along with the prompt, then the output is not going to be great.
Mm,
But if you have amazing context, you could have a 2-line prompt and it's going to give you much better output than the other prompt. Obviously, the best scenario is you have an amazing prompt and amazing context. But the point I'm trying to make here is the context is much more valuable than the actual prompt. And a lot of
gotcha,
times,
gotcha.
if you have enough context set up, you don't, the prompt can be very simple. So I like to build systems where the prompting is almost already done by the context, by the system prompt that lives in something like Claude. So you can come in and you can say, build me a funnel. Literally, that's the prompt. Build me a funnel. It has all the context it needs to come back and say, okay, these are the options for your funnel today. Which one would you like to choose? And it's pulling that from all of your data. So all of it's going to be relevant. And then it's just a matter of you picking and choosing and going back and forth with it and coming up with the funnel that you want.
Yeah, makes sense. Would you also say that that's one of the AI workflows that's made you of giving you the best output slash money from using AI in terms of like ecom? Because obviously there's a split in ecom where I see people talking about I'm pumping out creators with AI, and I've also seen a couple of guys saying like I'm multi-testing tons of landing pages and I've hit winners with Claude Design, HTML import into Shopify, and I end up split testing all this type of stuff. So my question is basically, is that one of the AI workflows that ecom founders should be focusing on right now at this time of recording, 30 June 2026? Is the only way that you can make basically shitload of money next to angles and all that type of stuff, but output from Claude in terms of it giving you something? Would it be AI creatives? Would it be landing pages? Or would you say like it just comes down into research, but you're going to need to hand it over to a creative strategist or whatsoever, and they
Yeah.
need to bring it to life?
So I would say right now, probably the way, because most ecom operators are working on Facebook, right? Vast
Yeah.
majority of them. And Facebook as an algorithm um it wants a lot, right? So it wants a lot of statics, it wants a lot of funnels, it wants a lot of these things. And your ability to scale is basically your ability to output all of that stuff at scale, right? So what I would say is there's not one thing, right? So I can't say go and just pump out loads of statics and that's gonna make you lots of money, because at the end of the day, the statics is only one part of the whole funnel, right? So you have to think of it as, you've got a funnel. The funnel is, you have the top, where you're on Facebook and you're inputting, you're giving it statics, you're giving it, long form statics, you're giving it videos. That's feeding the top of that funnel. And then as you go lower down that funnel, you want to be able to produce more variety. So, let's say you've got your static set up, then you want to build your advertorials, your listicles, your quiz funnels, whatever sitting in between that and then your final PDP. So what I would say is you want to build systems where you can put out that funnel, build those funnels at scale, and build them at scale in a way that's congruent, right? Because obviously, if your statics don't line up with your funnel, then they're not going to convert, right? So the way I like to build systems for my clients, and what I tell people is build it in a way that you're generating the entire funnel. So when you go into Claude, what I normally, the way I start, for example, for one of my brands, if I'm going in for one of my brands and I want to say, let's build a funnel today. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and I'm going to start with, okay, what's the angle I want to hit, right? What's the angle I want to target? Maybe I'll go back and forth with Claude. We'll brainstorm a bit on what we've been running recently, what's been performing well, and we'll say, okay, this is the angle we want to build. So once I've got that defined, then everything builds off of that angle. So I'm going to tell it, okay, I want now, we've defined the angle. I want 50 creative concepts, statics for this angle. Then it's going to give me a couple of concepts. I'm going to say, okay, great, these are good. Let's generate those. It's going to generate those using either Nano Banana or GPT. Then once I've got those concepts, I'm going to say, okay, what's the next stage? Am I running, do I want to do videos? If I want to do videos, then okay, I'm going to pump out some video scripts and put that through my video pipeline. For video, I tend to still use a combination of AI and video editors. I don't think it's really at the place yet where it can be completely automated, but the video scripting can. So, I can pump out, 10, 15, 20 video scripts. And then the final step of that funnel is going to be obviously the advertorial or the listicle or whatever fits well within the angle that's being defined. And then through that system, you're then able to build these funnels at scale. So, before what would have taken 2 or 3 weeks to generate one of these funnels, I can now do in a couple of days. I can beginning to end have 50 to 100 statics, have 15 to 20 video scripts, and have 2 to 3 different funnel pages, advertorial, listicle, quiz, whatever you want, all ready within a day or two. Maybe even a day if I'm doing it aggressively, and that's all I'm working on. So that's what I would say is your number one leverage as an e-com brand wanting to scale.
Yeah, yeah. And would you say that us, like, CEOs, operators, all that type of stuff, should we be focusing on mastering these things ourselves, or just, getting to know a little bit about, the whole ecosystem of how it works, maybe try it a couple of times, and then afterwards delegating it to an AI creative strategist that just focuses on statics? How would you go about
What I
that?
would say is understand it. So it's important to understand it, definitely. I think as an e-com brand owner, it's important to understand, at least at a high level, every part of your business, because how can you make a decision if you don't understand it, right? So how can I make a decision about something operational or something in marketing or wherever if I have no understanding of it, right? I need to have at least a basic understanding of how it works. So what I would say is, yes, get a basic understanding of it. And then I would say, depending on the type of operator you are and what you want to focus on. So some people, they're really into AI. It's like me, for example, I'm really into AI, right? So for me, if I'm going to start a brand, I'm naturally going to gravitate towards being more involved in the AI side because I love it, right? But you need to do as 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 an owner, I believe, focus on the thing you love, and then the other stuff, just get really good people to do that. So if you understand AI, but it's not really your thing, you don't love it, you know you need to use it, but it's not, your thing is something else, right? Um, Focus on that thing and get someone who's really good at AI to make sure AI is implemented well for you in your organization. Uh, and the same for everything else. You can't, especially as you scale as a brand, as you get bigger and bigger, you can't do everything, right? You can't be on top of absolutely everything and be in the weeds on everything. So what I like to do is really pick the thing that I love and be more involved in that, and then just get people who are really good at the other stuff. What I would say though is make sure everyone you hire knows how to use AI, because as we keep going into this AI world, everything is, every AI will touch every part of your business, almost everything. And you want people who know how to use AI and understand AI and don't push back against AI. Because some people do. Naturally, some people they're scared of AI because they're worried it's going to take over their job, right? It's just natural. So you have two types of people: the people who embrace it and want to take the most value out of it and make sure they excel as a person by using AI, and people who push against it, right? Hire the people who embrace it, because those are the people who are going to really excel if you want to be an AI first business.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think I'll touch base on 2 points here. One is going to be about my basically my team, and then also like other operators, what I also see what they're, some people pushing back on AI and stuff. So talking about my team, like you obviously helped us build like our Claude structure, and then afterwards also, and one of the things that was really, yeah, like I'm very data driven, right? So I first thing in the morning, I've also went ahead and built out like my own CEO dashboard with Claude as well. It took me some time, but Claude Code, VS Code setup went ahead and just did it. So now I'm pulling
Awesome.
like all the ad spend stuff. Like you also recommended me in taking Windsor.ai in order to connect like Facebook, Taboola, Apple, and Google. Also took, API keys from Shopify, and then also from my P&L sheets, all that type of stuff, put it all into one dashboard. So in the morning, instead of like us ecom guys, we have so many different dashboards to look at. Even Klaviyo, for example, like I never look into Klaviyo. I do have a Klaviyo email marketing team there, where now I've just put also, API keys of Klaviyo into that
Yeah,
dashboard, and now I can see like,
you
how
can
much
pull
new
it all
revenue
in.
came
Yeah.
yesterday. You can do everything exactly. So my point was, data was scattered like between all these different platforms. So I went ahead and put it all into one CEO dashboard, basically. But what was even more quote unquote irritating for me was that I did not have any insights into the core metrics for my creative strategist, right? Basically, like the business, every business, especially ecom, the two biggest pillars are so important are going to be acquisition and retention. So our side, acquisition, because we won't have MR without people coming through the front door, is creative strategists, editors. I want to know how many batches per week are they actually delivering, right? Yes, you can manually go ahead and count, and we have like ClickUp system, Excel sheets, all that type of stuff. But I want to know how many batches per week are actually made and launched, and also how much ad spend are these new creators pulling in, after the launch? Are they winners, non-winners? And basically seeing basically the KPIs of my strategists. That was lacking. And then until you helped us build out like a whole KPI strategist dashboard for the marketing team, which I sometimes also look into, but that's more for Ramo, my business partner side. And I can now literally just go ahead and see exactly like, okay, hey, which creative strategist is actually a high performer and who's a low performer. Instead of manually going into Facebook, pulling out reports, having to break it down, cut it up, especially for for incentives, what we do is we give percentage of our ad spend to winning ads for the creative strategists, right? So we had to always go ahead and like manually
Count them.
count
Yeah.
that. It was such a headache beginning of the month. They would have to wait for a couple of days because too many strategists, all that type of stuff. But yeah, coming back to the point of the team, I did not have any insights into into the creative strategist part. So like KPIs and deliverables, that was the two main important things. And that's why we actually said like, okay, hey, we need to have a dashboard where, we first build out a meta naming convention in order for AI to read exactly like, hey, this name of this person has done this amount of spend. This is their average ROAS, right? And now that we have that clarity, we can literally just go into one dashboard, look at it and be like, okay, hey, this guy is doing good, this guy is not doing good. And we end up like trying to help them in order to
Yes.
become better. And obviously after a few tries, if that doesn't work out, you leave and then we get someone else in, So that has given a clarity. And also for the team side, when we went ahead and built out the Claude dashboard for them, I also saw like a couple of people didn't really want to use the AI. And I think it comes back to your point where people are probably thinking like, oh, we're going to give all this input and then eventually I'm going to get replaced. And now every week we have a weekly team call where I go ahead and break down exactly like, hey, what are we working on? What is still in the works? Where are we heading? What are the goals for the next quarter or even the next year? And one of the things we ended up saying was also like AI. And we told them exactly like, hey, it's not going to be replacing you. It's just going to be enhancing you. Enhancing whatever you're capable as. You're going to just make it 10 times faster or 100 times better. And especially, I also said like, hey, there's other companies out there where everyone's using AI. They're beating us if we're not using it. So we all need to use it. And the worst case scenario, the people that did not end up using it would have to kick them,
Yeah.
So that is, I think, like number one important tip to the people watching this is like, get known with AI. You don't need to be like an AI, like geek or whatsoever, but do make sure that you know at least the basics of it. And then, you can also tell exactly if someone's using it good, yes or no. And coming down to the second part where I can see for the operator side, the owners, is that there seems to be like an AI gap that's emerging between three different layers in terms of AI. So basically you got like baseline would be you have people that are basically leaning too much on their own personal craft without the use of AI. So like, I don't want to use AI. I think I can do it better, all that type of stuff. And then you also got people that are, I'm going to try and increase my productivity with AI, but I'm going to just ask questions and see, instead of doing something for an hour, I'm going to go ahead and do it within 10 minutes or 20 minutes, which is still good. And the third one is more AI native. So basically, these guys are completely using AI to expand the limits of their own craft entirely, basically. To come back to the third, like the last layer for AI native, I heard like there's two guys actually. So we got MetV of MEVD. Not sure if you heard of them. The two brothers that built out the telehealth brand that did 1.2 or 1.8 billion in a year, mostly using AI. Freaking insane. And another one was that there are these two e-com operators I heard about. They went from $0 to $7 million in 3 or 4 months. They had went ahead and built out their own Shopify storefront, eliminated Shopify from the whole ecosystem. Check out, I'm not sure what they went ahead and did that. And obviously it comes down to payment processing, which they're obviously going to need because others need to get all these certificates and all that type of stuff. But then I'm like, how do you go from like a MEFD standpoint from 0 to 1.2 bill, or these guys doing 0 to 7 mil in 3-4 months just by using AI? And for the guys that did 7 mil, they did AI statics 80% only.
Yeah.
That's it. Like,
yeah.
What has it been on your, like, we broke down exactly the layers. Like we got people not using AI, people using it a little bit, not maximizing it. And then we got people like everything. I'm going to just go full on and on AI. Obviously, in a standpoint, AI native is going to just go ahead and rinse the others. But like, what is a bit of your take on that?
So I would say, so basically, this comes back to a question that's been, it goes around a lot. Is kind of like, is AI leveling the playing field or widening it? So and I think it's very clear that it's a lot of people will think, oh, AI is leveling the playing field. It's making it easier for everyone. But actually, I don't think that's the case. I think it's actually widening the gap, because AI, fundamentally, AI is a force multiplier, right? So if you're really good at something, or if you know how to do something, AI is going to make you do it 10 times better. But if you have no idea how to do something, then using AI is not going to necessarily make you 10 times better at it. It might make you a little better, but it's not going to make you amazing. So those guys who built those businesses, I guarantee you they were very good at understanding marketing and product market fit because that's how they grew so quickly. Now, what AI did is it allowed them to just scale at an unbelievable pace. But if you took someone else and gave them exactly the same tools and they know how to use those tools, but they don't know anything about e-commerce. They don't know anything about product market fit. They don't know anything about how to actually speak to customers and get that data that you need to really understand what's going to trigger those customers emotionally. They wouldn't have been able to achieve those same things. So um, from my point of view, what makes um, AI really useful as a tool is being able to deploy it for what you're really good at, right? So if you know something, how to do something really well, then AI can help you scale that ability much better. So for ecom operators, what that means is that if if you're already a good operator, right? If you already understand e-commerce, if you already understand marketing, if you already understand the operational side of e-commerce, then using AI is going to just help you scale your business a lot faster because you'll have those tools to just supercharge what you already know.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah. It's not
again, like
that you.
it comes back to the input, right? Because
Yeah.
if you know what inputs to give it, then you're going to get the outputs that are going to help you scale. But if you don't know what inputs to give it, then you're just relying on it answering your questions, right? AI is not for, and I hear this a lot, oh, AI is for lazy people. AI is not for lazy people. If you're lazy and you want to use AI, then you're going to get a lazy response. And actually, the people I know who use AI really well, what AI allows them to do is work 10 times harder, not work less. So the people I know who are using AI and using it well, it makes them much more productive. They're working much more than they would have before. It's not taking them and allowing them to work less. It's taking them and allowing them to work more.
Interesting. Interesting. Yeah. So for the people that are watching this, they shouldn't think like, hey, I have no e-commerce experience. I'm going to just chat with Claude and Claude's going to build me up this $1 billion e-com store, because it just comes back to fundamentals. You need to understand marketing,
Exactly.
acquisition, all that type of stuff in order to even, maximize the output with AI in any playing field. So that
Exactly.
is that is a good one.
Now,
Yeah.
of course, you can train the AI. So you can if you had a lot of if you didn't have the knowledge yourself, but you could acquire the knowledge from someone else, or you could, let's say you get lots of books or lots of courses or whatever, you could, in theory, train an AI to then become an expert. But out of the box, the AI is built off generic data, right? So it's going to have a very generic answer, right? You can train it, of course. I mean, that's the beauty of AI. It can be trained. So if you're a really good operator, you could train your AI to be as good as you, right?
Yeah.
But you need to have that knowledge needs to come from somewhere. So if you don't
Yeah.
have it, you need to get it from somewhere to be able to train the AI.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm also like, at least me and the team are also building like an AI brain, basically the Brandon AI brain.
Yes.
So all of my team calls that come in with Fathom Note Taker, and I'm, teaching someone on, how to do X, Y, and Z, or all these Loom videos that I have that I've made myself explaining X, Y, and Z or whatsoever, like literally just going ahead and transcribing all of them and then feeding them into this, Claude whatsoever AI brain that I want to eventually have, so they can be fully optimal on basically all e-commerce, right? Like all my YouTube videos, all the tweets that I've once put out, all the Instagram reels that I've made, giving sauce, like that, put in all into an AI brain that you can just chat with and just basically have an e-com Claude in order to get
Yes.
feedback on. But it sounds easy, but it's not that easy. There's a
It's
lot
not.
of trial and
No.
error, seeing how it is and how to make it sound like me and all that type of stuff. But yeah, once it's there, I'll definitely end up sharing that with you. That's going to be a funny one. So let's walk back to the people that are, they understand, at least they know Claude is there and all that type of stuff. They're in ecom. They're not maximizing their Claude, or I'll use Claude for now. Let's just say the Claude setup. How would you go ahead and end up building basically your brand's brain in AI, so it like never forgets your avatar, market, angles, all that type of stuff? How would you go about doing that? I think it plays a little bit into skills with Claude.
Yeah, so I think so. I mean, look, when it comes to Claude specifically, what you want to do is you want to hold everything inside of what they call a project, and each of the models has their own version of this, but it's basically it's where you hold all the data, all the context for whatever it is you're building. So let's say you have a brand, you'd set up a project for that brand, and all of the context for that project lives within that brand. And then the way I like to structure it is I like to think of everything in layers, right? So um, you start with the first layer, which is essentially your brand context. What's the product? What's your USP? Why is there a product market fit? All of that kind of stuff. Now, again, this is something I'd probably start with what you have, everything you have on the brand, put it in there. And then also I do a bit of research on top of that to see if there are any things there you've missed, any gaps that the research can pull out. And that kind of like is the first layer of the foundation. And then on top of that, we'll build out the avatar layer, which is, understanding who are your avatars for each one, building out deep psychographic profiles. Why are they buying? What have they bought before? Why it worked? What didn't work? What they like about other products, what they don't like about other products, like going really, really deep onto each avatar, because that then again is another foundational layer that sits on top of that. And then you can start building out the other things, like the angle map, the copywriting guide, the brand guidelines, everything that the AI needs to understand, okay, if I'm building a static, for this brand, what do I need to understand to build that static? Well, you need to understand the product. You need to understand the avatar. Who am I targeting? Why am I targeting them? What kind of language should I use? You need to understand the brand guidelines. What fonts should I use? What colors should I use? So all of that lives within this kind of like project. So all the context is in there. And then you have the workflows of how to execute things. Now, this is what you call skills. So a skill essentially is a codified workflow. So it's taking the inputs of your context, and then based on a certain workflow, it's then giving you outputs. That is essentially what a skill does. So, for example, if you want to write a prompt for Nano Banana, that's a skill, right? I would build that as a skill. A skill is something that you do repeatedly, a lot in your setup. So, writing prompts for Nano Banana or GPT is something that you're going to do continuously. So you build a skill for it so that when you want to do that, it's very easy. It just goes to the skill, executes the skill, gives you an output. So, for a Nano Banana prompting skill, what it does, it's taking all of those inputs that I just said, everything it needs to know about the prompt that it needs to build. The skill itself defines how it should use those inputs, how it should write the prompt, and how it should output the prompt, and then it outputs the prompt. So context sits in the project. Skills are the workflows that sit on top of that context and then gives you the outputs that you need. So, for my clients, I'll have skills, maybe 15, 20 skills in their projects, from everything from writing copy for ads, generating prompts, writing video scripts, doing research on new products, all
Biggest
of
one
these
for
things.
us has been writing long form static skill.
Yes, yeah. So
That one has been crushing. Yeah.
yeah. Long form statics are crushing at the moment. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's working well for our brands too. Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, look,
Yeah.
everything that you need, and I'm sure with you guys, you're doing dozens of those per week, right? So having a skill where you can just say execute the skill and Claude knows exactly what to do, that's where the value of the skills are.
Yeah, yeah, 100% makes sense. Yeah, yeah, it's crazy that I have all these things coming up. At least like with AI, like 3 to 6 months from now, 12 maybe. We don't know what's going to happen, right? But how close would you say that we are to clicking a button and then having basically like your whole Shopify store built out? You just tell them, okay, here's my product, build it out, launch creatives, and launch even on Facebook, and then end up scaling it.
So
How?
what I would say is technically we're actually almost there. We're not far technically, but practically, I don't think it's. I think what AI lacks right now is good judgment, and that's where you still need humans, right? So I would. I don't think we're at a place yet, and I don't know when we'll get there, but I don't think we're at a place yet where you could build and deploy a store and launch ads and do all of that without any human interaction. Not because it's technically not feasible. It is technically feasible, but because when I think of AI, I want to think about its risk and reward, right? So AI makes mistakes. It still makes mistakes, and I don't think it will ever be completely mistake free. It'll get better and better. So the mistakes it was making 6 months ago are much more than the mistakes it's making now. But it still makes mistakes. So when I look at, okay, where am I going to deploy it in my business? I'm looking at where can I get the most amount of benefit with the least amount of risk. So for example, statics, great. I can produce 100 statics, 1,000 statics. Maybe I don't even look at them. I mean, we generally do look at them before we put them in the ad account. But even if you didn't look at them, the worst thing that's going to happen is it's a shit static and Facebook doesn't spend on it, right? So the risk there is really low. So you can pump out tons of statics and just throw them in the account, and it's not a big deal if a lot of them don't work. But for example, I wouldn't give it the ability to launch ads for me, right? We're not there yet because the risk there is really high. I'm not saying it's going to get it wrong. It might get it right. It might get it right 80% of the time. But if it gets it wrong, even once or twice, it can burn a lot of money, right? So that's where the risk reward doesn't make sense for me yet, right? It might do one day when, it's 99% of the way there. So the risk of it making a mistake is so low that it's still worth it. It's not there yet. And there are other parts of your stack where you're building a store, you know, you have to think about what is the customer journey is when they land on that product page, are they seeing what I want them to see? Am I communicating them in a way that I want to communicate? If you give all of that to AI and you just say, you do it, right? Without any input, you still need the human judgment there. So I would, for example, say, okay, create me a listicle or an advertorial. Fine, it does all the work, but if I'm not looking at it myself, I still want a creative strategist to look at it and think, okay, 80% of this, 90% of this is right, but maybe I'm going to change this there, here, or fix this there, because that's where human judgment comes in. And I still think there is a layer of human judgment that is needed so that it's not just one button.
Yeah,
You know what I
yeah.
mean?
To touch base on that, why would you go ahead and launch 100 creatives, even though you have your whole, prompting and all that type of stuff all set up? Why would you do like 100, like push 100 towards Facebook instead of like, sniper focusing on 10 high intent creative, even if it's just a static? What is your take on that? Because obviously, like with AI, we can pump out 100, but why would we not
So,
focus on making 10 high intent creative statics, for
I
example?
mean, look, people look at it in what I try to do is build a system that does both, right? Because what AI allows you to do is it allows you to have intent with every creative that you output, right? So why is the output shit? Because the input is shit. If the input is good, then the output is likely to be good. Now, why I say we need to output a lot is because that's just the way the Facebook algorithm works. The Facebook algorithm is hungry. It's a numbers game, right? So no matter how many, let's say you have 10 amazing ads, you put those 10 ads in there, Facebook might not spend, on them. You don't know till they're in the ad account spending, right? So because you can output so many, your goal is to try and output as many high quality ads as you can. And you don't really know till it's in the account, right? You could spend a week on this creative that you think, oh my God, this creative is amazing. And you put it in the account, it doesn't get spent, right? Because maybe it's not hitting that angle in just the right way that the customer relates to it. And you don't really know that till it's in the ad account. So a bit like you, I'm very data driven, right? So why I say launch 100 or launch 1,000 ads is because I can launch those ads relatively quickly and cheaply and get the data back to see, okay, these are the ones that are performing. Why are they performing? And I know why they're performing because I know everything that's gone, the input to create that ad. I know it, it's there. Then I can understand, okay, this is what works, right? So then I can say, okay, let's pump out more of this, right? This is what's working this week. Maybe it stops working in a couple of weeks, but right now this is what's working. So let's leverage that. Let's pump out more of that. And then once it stops, then we'll go on to the next thing. So and then you have the things that are working, but you always want to keep testing other things, right? So even if you have, like 10, 15, 20 concepts, and each one has, let's say 50 or 60 different variations, and they're all performing, that's great. But you also want to continue finding other things that are performing. So it's kind of like it's this never-ending cycle, right? So you need to have an engine, basically. You need to build an engine that's iterating on what's working and generating new concepts all the time. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to compete with the people who are doing that, right? So Facebook is an auction, right? So you're competing against people for eyeballs. And the people who are going to get those eyeballs are the people who are generating the most amount of high value content, right? So that's the game you're playing. And you need to create an engine to be able to kind of win that game.
100%, 100%. And how would you go about like pumping out creators without AI looking like AI slop?
So
Because I see a lot of creators AI
yeah,
slop out there now, you
yeah.
know?
So
Basically, it's just skill issue of the operator or whoever's making those
yeah,
ads.
I
But
mean, look, it is. It comes down to again, it comes down to the input, but not just in terms. So what if we think about what is AI slop? AI slop is ads that look generic, right? Ads that look like there's been no thought that's gone into that ad, right? So that's someone who's gone in, made an ad without much thought, and AI is very good at convincing you that you're smart, even if you're not, right? So this is something I warn a lot of people about is AI, it's sycophantic by nature. It's built to be that way. It wants to make you sound smart. So you need to make sure that you don't fall into that trap, right? So personally, for me, for example, I build all my system prompts to cut all of that out. I tell it to be highly critical because I want to make sure that it's not just saying, oh, you're so smart because it's trained to do that, right? So when it comes to AI slop, what you want to do is make sure that the input is right, the data is right, and the angles. You want to make sure that you're producing a variety of unique angles that is going to look and feel different to everything else and everyone else's ad account, right? So, and
yeah,
that comes from understanding the customers and understanding the avatars and making sure your research is on point and the data is on point, and then you build angle maps on top of that, and then you're building your ads from those angle maps, right? And you want angle maps that, so when I go, for example, and this is something a lot of founders do, is when they create the angles, they go in with an idea of what an angle should be, right? But they're bringing their own kind of biases to that. And that's not really the right way to build an angle because you are not the customer. So you need to build the angle based on the customer. So
Hmm.
when I go and ask, you know, my agent or my setup to create an angle for me, I only ask it to look at the data. Normally, either my own data or a competitor's data. So for example, if I see a competitor is doing really well with a certain creative or a certain long form or whatever, I'm going to take that, I'm going to put it in, I'm going to say, this ad is doing really well, analyze why, and then how can I apply that to my avatars? Create me a new angle around that, right? So I always try and go with the data as opposed to coming in with my preconception of what I think might be a good angle.
Yeah. No, 100% agreed. Yeah. 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 Yeah, interesting. Even though like you're telling me these things, like it also is like unlocking some new stuff in my pathways to like I
Yeah.
want to jump behind Claude now and start playing around with
Yeah.
it again. You know,
Yeah.
um, you know, also with like all these AI tools, we got so many. And one thing that I find funny, where I see people talk about on Twitter, which I haven't experienced myself, is AI credits usage. I'm seeing people spending crazy amounts on AI, like 70K, all that type of
Yes.
stuff. To be honest, my cloud thing is only, I've been paying it $200 a month. Is
Yes.
it because I'm not maximizing the way, you know, AI is supposed to, like, in order to hit those usage
No.
credits
Uh,
or?
yes and no. So I would say for this for your standard e-commerce brand, you're never going to run into that problem, right? Because
Mm,
what you're doing, and most of it comes down to the models you're using and what they're using, what you're using them for. So for e-commerce brands, I would be very surprised if you ever ran into these issues. Firstly, because for most of what you want to do as an e-commerce brand, you don't need to use Opus. You can use Sonnet. Sonnet, the newer version of Sonnet is very good. It's more than capable of doing most anything that an e-commerce brand would want to do, and you're not going to run out of credits on the highest tier of Claude using Sonnet. Now, if you're if you're vibe coding a lot, like I do, for example, then and you're using Claude Opus on the max setting, and you're running multiple agents, multiple sessions. So sometimes I will have literally, 5 or 6 different coding agents running simultaneously, and that can burn through credits very quickly, especially if you've got them on loops. So what you can do is you can put them on loops where, they do an activity and then let's say they do a codex review. So normally I get one agent to review the coding of another agent. So, let's say I use Claude Code as my base and then I use Codex to review my Claude Code, and then you can put that in a loop. So, you've got it reviewing the work, fixing it, reviewing the fix, fixing it, reviewing. So it just goes in this kind of loop. If you're not careful, that loop can get very, very expensive. Um, so again, there are definitely ways that you can run up crazy credit bills on these models. But I would say for e-commerce, you don't really have to worry about that. You can produce, so much content just within the max plan and never run out of credits. I wouldn't worry about
yeah,
that as an e-com operator.
yeah, yeah. You know, speaking about agents, I haven't touched that at all. Like, I know you have the AI agents. A lot of people are on the Mac Mini stuff. Hermes agent is what I've also heard of. Like,
Yeah.
so obviously, like, I use Claude. I haven't even touched Claude Cowork also. So I use like Claude Code. I use then the chat. Like, those are the only two things I use. Would you say from like agents, is there a specific agent that I should go ahead or, you know, other DTC
So
guys should go
I,
ahead and build
I,
out?
I, agents agents are good for highly repetitive tasks where you can trust the agent to do it and you don't have to intervene. Again, a bit like what I was saying before, risk reward, right? The good thing about agents is you can take a task, a repetitive task, and automate it entirely and trust the agent to do it, you know? So, for example, um, one of the agents I have for one of my brands is it deploys it's essentially an SEO agent, right? So what I've got is I got it to build 5 or 6 different blogs, and for each blog, the agent is posting every single day. It's posting articles on all of these blogs. I don't
Hmm.
really have to look at it because the content itself, while important, the most important thing is building out these blogs with all this content that looks real and organic and lived in. So every day it's posting a new article and a new article, and it's doing that within a structure and a framework that I've built for it, and it's good. It goes and now these blogs have literally hundreds of posts across all of them, and they're building a nice SEO authority and ranking online, and nice organic traffic going towards them. And I don't need to do anything. I've got my agents running, and that's it. But again, it's really low risk. If one of those pages, the content on one of those pages isn't great, it's not the end of the world, because there what I'm trying to build is the whole package, right? So there, I can run an agent and trust that I don't really have to worry about it. But I wouldn't necessarily take an agent and, let's say, have it pump out. You could in theory take an agent and say, okay, I want this agent to pump out 1,000 creatives a week, and these creatives go straight into Facebook. You could do that, right? But
Media
again,
buying agent.
you could build a media buying agent. Yeah, but again, I wouldn't trust it without that human intervention there, right? So, um, yeah, it depends what the specific task is. So I would find, if you want to build an agent for your business, I would find what are the repetitive tasks that you're doing or your team is doing right now, where you can automate it, but the risk of a failure is not so big that it's a big problem for your business, right? So that's what I would look for, places in your business where you can do that, automate it with an agent. Again, it's reasonably easy to automate with these agents these days.
Yeah.
You listed a couple, um, and then just have it do that. I mean, honestly, for me, a lot of these agents are good for more personal tasks versus
Running a
business
business.
tasks, I found in general. So, it can automate a lot of your personal stuff reasonably well, because again, the, it's low risk there, right? So, clearing out your email, or helping you with your calendar, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but for business, I tend to not trust agents too much yet. Again, maybe it changes relatively soon, where you can start building agents more into the workflow. But I still think that, because a lot of the key things are still gated by humans, you still want that human judgment in there before you actually deploy certain assets. It's a limited scope with agents.
So if you were to start a brand from zero, would AI only be just helping on the research and creating statics for you, or would it also be doing some other stuff?
No, you can certainly do other stuff. You can do stuff on the operational side. I would say the highest leverage for an e-commerce business is statics, because that's what, and the marketing and creative side of the business, because that is what is going to, and customer support definitely helps with customer support as well. So I would definitely look at that. There are a lot of good customer support tools that deploy AI. So what I would probably do is just use one of those, and then just take your context and your data and feed it into that. So it's built off of your data and context. Something like Rich Panel or ComSlayer. There's lots of them that do it
Yeah.
reasonably well. But I would say the highest leverage point is going to be um, Yeah, the marketing side, because that's what's going to allow you to scale. I mean, there's definitely stuff you can do in operations and all that stuff, but you need to be able to scale to get to the point where you're going to need that. Because at the beginning, you can do most of that um, either yourself or with a very small team. It doesn't really need automation yet. When you get to a
Mhm.
certain size and scale, yes, definitely there's stuff on the operational side, customer service, all of that stuff can be automated too, definitely.
Interesting. I would say from the last thing from a team side of things, when would you say to someone that is, paying, for example, a triple whale, like we pay them 40K a year or something. When would it be like, is it worth even building out tools like that with AI? Because obviously within that budget, how I look at it is that, okay, I pay 40K a year, any technical issues or credits that end up getting used or whatsoever, that's all on them. They need to make sure that they fix it, right? Where if I were to build it out myself, which is definitely possible, I'll need to also, maintain it. If anything breaks, I need to go ahead and fix that and stuff. Would you like, if I want to build something myself, would I have to look at how much money is it costing me versus like a tool like ComSlayer is like $80 a month, right? Why would I go ahead and build out my own
Exactly.
ticketing system? You know what I mean?
Yes.
What's your
Exactly.
take on
Exactly.
that?
So what I would say is you have several places where I think building something for yourself is valuable. One, if you want to build something where it's custom. So, for example, what I built for you guys to track your creative strategists, um, that is something I built custom for you guys based on your requirements, your specifications. Um, so that's probably where right now AI just it's so much easier and faster and cheaper than it used to be. Like if you wanted to build that dashboard, just a few years ago, it would have taken months and cost probably tens of thousands of dollars.
Hmm.
I did it for you in a couple of weeks at the fraction of that cost. So you can now build crazy things without a huge amount of cost or effort. But the question, like you quite rightly said, is it worth it, right? For something like ComSlayer, no, it's not worth it because they've already done it. They've built it. Like you said, they're going to handle everything and you can input your context and customer support is customer support. You don't need to build something that's custom built for you there. Just use what's already on the market because it's well tested. Um, and you don't have to worry about it. Doesn't have to be a headache for you. But then if you want to build something custom where it's adding a lot of value, then it's probably worth doing that. So again, it depends what you're doing, where it is in your stack.
Triple whale.
Oh yeah, triple whale. For something like triple whale where you're talking about attribution, right? So that has a very high impact on your business, right? So even though it's expensive, I would probably say unless you really know what you're doing, um, it's probably worth the cost because it has such a high impact on your business that you could probably build something yourself that replaces it. But because it's such a high impact to your business, if it breaks and you have to fix it, your downtime is going to cost you money, right? Whereas with them, it's not that it's guaranteed the uptime, but it's much less likely to break because they have a whole team working on it. That's just their business is just that. Um, so where it's that high leverage in your business, I would probably just accept the cost unless you really know what you're doing and you can
Yeah.
build something.
Yeah, it makes sense. I even asked Claude, like my daily routine is when I go out away from the desk, I use Whisperflow. I then end
Yeah,
up chatting to Whisperflow for like
yeah,
20
was
minutes, just
great.
outing
Yeah, I
everything.
use
And I
Whisper a lot.
asked it before even signing that contract with Triple Whale, like, can I not build out my own one with Claude? And like, it's basically just seeing revenue, seeing ad spend and stuff. And he said, yes, you can. The only thing is that the attribution part, that is where Triple Whale is not yet really replaceable
Yeah,
unless you're going to be doing it. Like, it's not worth the time as an operator for me to be building it and then
exactly,
maintaining it. That
exactly.
is what made it, that was the decision making factor. So for the people that are watching, I'll tell them, like, Whisperflow is a very good one stuff. Yeah, that's how I also came on the triple wheel stuff. So funny, funny. Yeah, Hilo, we've been chatting for over an hour, bro. I don't want
Yeah,
to take too much of your time. I appreciate
no,
you
it's all
like
right,
coming
man.
onto this. I would
Of
say
course.
last thing for people watching in terms of AI, what is the number one tip you would end up giving them if they have not yet gone ahead and master AI? Why, and also why they should go ahead and do that now to like front run the masses that are, AI native, that type of stuff.
Yeah, I would say I'll start with the why. The why is because if you don't, someone will, and they will beat you, right? This is, especially e-commerce, it's very, very competitive, right? It's a very competitive game, and people will use whatever they can to get leverage. And right now, AI is giving people a lot of leverage. So I would say that is the why, because you kind of have to. If you want to be in this game, you kind of have to use AI. Um, if you want to get into it, honestly, the best way is just play with it, use it. That is how I learned, right? That is how I got into AI, was literally just using it for myself, for one of my brands a couple of years ago, and just playing with it, getting used to get used to talking to AI. That's what I would say is the number one most important thing is understand how to communicate with AI, because it's different to communicating with a human being. So people go and they speak to AI as if they're speaking to a human. It's not a human. And the more you speak to it, the more you'll understand how to speak to it. Once you understand how to communicate with AI, then you can kind of learn by communicating with it. That's how I learned. The vast majority of what I learned is just through communicating with AI and getting it to teach me things and getting it understanding how it communicates, how it thinks, right? Once you understand a bit about how it reasons, how it thinks, then you start understanding how to prompt it better and how to get what you want out of it better and the kinds of mistakes it's likely to make, and understanding, for example, context windows. Context windows, most people don't think about that, but it's very, very important. Like when you start a chat with Claude or Gemini or whoever, there is a context window. So the more you talk with it, the more context it's using up, right? The more context it uses up, I wouldn't say the dumber it gets, but the more likely it is to make mistakes in that chat. So one of the things I learned very early on is keep chats segmented to certain topics. Don't mix too many things in one chat because it gets confused. And don't let chats go on for too long, because the longer it goes, the the more it's gonna lose the context that it started with at the beginning of the chat, right? So you want to keep chats relatively short, not too short, but relatively short. You'll know when it starts losing it a bit. It'll start saying things that like you're like, oh, but I just told you this, So when you start seeing that, you're like, okay, I need to move to a new chat and take the context with you if you can. So what I normally do is, once it gets to that point, I'd say, okay, I want to move this to a fresh chat. Give me a context dump, and it'll just dump all your context to the document, and then start that fresh. So it starts with a fresh chat, and the context from the previous chat is there.
I'm noting that one. I make the mistakes. I talk about different stuff in the same chat as well.
Yeah, I mean,
So
look,
you said context dump, get it into like an MD file or something.
so for I mean, the way I set your project up, I don't know if you're working within the project I set up, probably not, but
Yeah.
if you are, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so in your project, just ask for a session log. So I've already set up your project to be able to do that. So at the end of every chat, just ask it to write a session log. It'll write the session log and it'll push it to your repo. That way it's always there.
Gotcha. No, great tip. Gonna start doing that from now on.
Yeah.
No, all right, Hilo. Thank you so much for hopping on this.
Of
Taking the
course, man.
time, an hour and 15 minutes. This is just way too much sauce for people here. Yeah, plug and play. Like, where can people find you? You're on Twitter, obviously. So
Yeah, I'm on Twitter, so I'll give you my handle so you can put it on the screen. Our website is contextarchitect.ai. So yeah, if you're interested in any help with your ecom business, when it comes to AI, just, come to the website and drop us a line and we'll be in touch.
100%. And I can vouch for what Hilal does since he's built crazy stuff and we still got stuff in the pipeline, which we won't
Yeah,
disclose in this video, but maybe in the next one in 6 months, a year from now, we'll definitely end up doing that.
for
Hilal,
sure.
Hilal, thank you very much, brother.